Hi everyone and welcome back to another brand new episode of the Intuitive Psychology podcast. I'm your host Jill Ritchie and I'm joined by my co-host and incredible business partner Sarah Gregg.
Hello.
Sarah. So today we are talking about something that is so important to us and we are super passionate about, and we believe it is everyone's ultimate superpower, and that is the power of your intuition. Okay, so let's just open up the wonderful world of intuition, Sarah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have an idea about what intuition is, and probably if you're listening to this, you're like, intuitive psychology, like how do those two things combine? But actually intuition is studied a lot in psychology, although it still is a bit of a mystery. You know, researchers, scientists have kind of looked at intuition, this our innate ability to know without knowing how we know. And intuition is really our ability to see the full truth without knowing why it's true, but just that deep inner sense of this makes sense and this is true to me. Intuition is really the ability to see the truth of ourselves and our lives. And it's such an untapped power because we overly rely, especially in the Western world, on logic and reason. And that's why at the Intuitive Psychology Association, like, we are the home of active and applied intuition. Active as in we train evidence-based ways to activate intuition so that you can discover the truth of yourself. And ultimately that is the gateway and the pathway into your true and full potential. And applied in that we also combine the logic and reason of, well, what are the actionable steps that I need to take? And the two are not separate. The two are interlinked with each other. But intuition is your superpower that sits just below the threshold of consciousness. But let me ask you, like, how has working with intuition, like, changed your life and your clients' lives? What's the difference between that and just solely working with the rational mind?
Because the rational mind isn't always rational, Sarah, right? It tells us lies a lot, and we create narratives and stories that we then gather evidence to support the lies and the narratives and the stories, and we believe that that is true, it's fate and all of that. And when we are not tapping into our intuition, we are missing out. Like, everyone knows, kind of like when you say to someone, oh, like, your intuition, and everyone's probably been like, yeah, I've had this thing where I had this intuitive nudge, or my intuition told me and I went against it. So the question is, right, when you have gone against your gut, your intuition, how did that serve you? Like, what happened in your life? Because that's what happens when we go against our intuition. When we don't use it, we not only lose it in the sense that it starts to become a little dormant, it stops communicating with us more, because the more we are actively using it, the more turned on to it and tuned into it we are, the smarter decisions we make. We become so connected to self, to truth, to innate wisdom within. And everything is, as a byproduct of that, is we start to live our truth. Ultimately, we become less attached to other people's narratives, to other people's stories, and we're so connected to the self. It is the ultimate superpower, as you say. And when we don't use it, we conform, we can become not just ill, like physically, emotionally, we become really detached from others, from ourselves. That is how important intuition is. And any time I've gone against it, which I've done many times in my almost 45 years of being on planet Earth, anytime I've gone against it, it's never worked. And that's it. And it's a funny one to describe, right? Because as you said, Sarah, scientists and experts have been trying to explain intuition, and it's one of those things that people really struggle to explain. But maybe that's because we don't need to explain it. It is that knowing. It's just, I don't know how I know. And I'll give you an example. Like, there's probably lots, but one that just jumped out for me was when, well, two things. When my mum passed away a few years ago, there was this pull for me to leave the country and to spend time on my own and really to immerse myself in grief. To everyone else around me, that was crazy. Why are you doing that? I didn't know why there, but I knew I had to go. And I think it was because if I'd stayed at home, I wouldn't have fully allowed myself to grieve and to feel. I'd have gone into mum mode and still continued with my business. But trusting that intuitive nudge to go there without having to know all the reasons why allowed me to have a complete breakdown, right? However, what was created from that was a real emptying of things that were no longer aligned in my life, and really a connection, a deeper connection to self, a deeper connection to rebuild safety from within instead of being attached to other people to make me feel safe. And that's still an ongoing journey. But also what was birthed from that was this incredible business, the Intuitive Psychology Association, where we are doing the most amazing things in the world and our students are doing the most amazing things in the world. That was a knowing without knowing. I couldn't articulate it. But what I've learned from that is if I can articulate it too much, then I'm in my head. Mm-hmm. If I'm like, I don't know why, I just know, that's when I know it's right. That's when I know it's my intuition. And the more I've done it, the safer I felt doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's because intuition is truth. It's the holistic truth. And it comes from a source that is untainted and unconditioned. It is like the purest voice within us that doesn't have the conditioned self present. You know, all of the narratives that naturally we store kind of, you know, in our bodies, in our minds, in our systems, in our identities of who we are, of the pain from the past that we're trying to protect ourselves from, all of these things that influence the rational mind, like you said. Intuition is free from that. It is an untainted source of wisdom that is always just sitting below the threshold of consciousness. And often our experiences with intuition are, you know, you kind of said like that knowing or a spontaneous nudge. Like we think it's something that comes outside of ourselves, like an energy we detect or feel, and we think, oh, it just, you know, I had a knowing, you know, I had that feeling. Or sometimes it can even be in the small things, like your phone rings and you're like, I knew that person was going to call. Like I just had a sense of it. So it feels kind of like something that's unpredictable. But like you said, it is this underdeveloped, underutilized resource that we all have, that if we can activate it, and there are evidence-based ways that enable us to activate it. Doesn't always mean that it allows you to listen to it, but there are evidence-based ways that allow you to activate it. Then this can really take us outside of the noise of other people's opinions, thoughts, beliefs, advice, and actually bring us to the answers that are deeply held within ourselves and can come from that purest form of wisdom and knowledge.
I really love that, because it's the activation part, right? So everyone, and I think everyone listening to this, you will at some point have had an intuitive nudge. Oh my God, like Sarah gave examples. I knew that person was going to phone, or you can sense, right? So when someone comes in a room, often you can sense their energy. Oh, you know, when people say you can cut the atmosphere with a knife. Oh, you can just say, that's your intuition, right? It's not what you can see, it's what you can feel. But if we know that it really never leads us down the wrong path, how do we start to work with it more? Like actually saying, right, I'm going to really master my intuition. If that's my superpower, how about I don't wait for it to give me a nudge? How about I actually sit down with this part of me and work with it to create the most abundant and authentic life for myself? And that is what we predominantly teach within intuitive psychology, right? How do you work with it? Like, how do you sit down and go, right, I'm going to sit down with intuition right now and we're going to create some magic, because that's the ultimate place where we want to get to, where we're like, I trust it. I think that's it, right? The trust piece of, yeah, but so-and-so said this, or I've seen evidence outside of myself that tells me this story. What if my intuition is wrong? It never is. And I think it's the more that you sit down and you exercise that trust muscle with your intuition, and sometimes you'll sit and nothing will come, but it's been able to continually practice and have fun with sitting with that part of you, dialing in and communicating with it, and it shows us so much.
Oh, so much. And we use evidence-based methods to help our coaches activate their intuition, but it can be applied to you in your own lives as well. Obviously, our coaches are able to go a lot deeper and really guide your intuition to elicit specific results. And again, because intuition is really fast and rapid insights into consciousness, this is why and how our coaches are able to really gain sustainable results that are true to the client, that happen almost like instantly. Like we see them having aha moments, like we watch our students' case studies whenever they come through, and you can see that moment where it's like, oh my goodness, because intuition breaks through the stories, the narratives, the beliefs, everything that the conditioned self is, and it shows us the truth, and it enables us to then use that new awareness to create a new reality and be that true version of ourselves and step into our full and true potential. And it's so beautiful. But it's a skill. It is a skill that we need to cultivate within ourselves. So let's talk about how intuition really communicates with us.
I love that. And as you were chatting there, I was thinking about when we're born, when we're a baby, right?
Yeah.
We don't go, if a baby's hungry, it doesn't go, oh, do you know what? My mum looks tired. I'm not going to cry for my bottle of milk. It just feels hungry.
I'm sure some mothers would be like, it'd be nice if they did for a little bit.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure you do, mums out there. I've been there myself. You're going to get fed. It's all right. Just let me heat the milk up. I feel like that's it. As a baby, right, we're so tapped into our intuition, we can really pick up on how we feel and express it, but along the way we start to conform and we start to sort of, okay, I feel this, but I'm not going to sort of act on it, or I'm not going to express that because maybe it will disappoint someone. And we start to sort of lose that through childhood. We want to belong, we want to fit in, we want to conform and to be the good girl or the good boy, right? And so we stop sort of tuning into our own innate wisdom, our own superpower to fit in, right?
Yeah.
And so I do feel that we are, it's my belief that we are all born with this really innate superpower of intuition, but along the way we learn to abandon it, right? We learn to let it go.
Yeah, and psychologists would also recognise that intuition is within everyone. Carl Jung, who's a very famous psychologist who our students study as part of their training, you know, he identified that intuition was one of the senses that we have, and it has an air of like mystery and mysticism behind it, and that's important, right? It's important that we hold that mystery, because not all of it does make sense. But not to discard it just because it doesn't make sense. You know, people will often say, oh, well, how do you know that to be true? And here's the reality, and the thing that we've kind of been mistaught in society. We're taught to really rely on science and facts and, you know, show me evidence of that. And that is an important component of things, but you can have both. Because here's the thing. Almost every single scientific discovery that you will read and learn about came from intuition. So let me give you an example. I'm going to take you back to GCSE. I don't even think they're called GCSEs now. I'm showing my age.
Nat 5s, I think.
Nat 5s, there we go. Nat 5s, whatever they are. But we're back in school. And you're in your classroom. For me, it was like this old dodgy, freezing cold mobile in Belfast. And undoubtedly in your science class, you will have seen a periodic table, which is the classification of all the different elements, which is probably as far as my knowledge on that really goes. that periodic table that is used in science every single day was created by a guy called Dmitry Mendeleev. Look at me smashing out that name.
I know.
I'm very impressed with myself. So Mendeleev actually created the periodic table after he had a dream, an intuitive dream. And from that dream, he drew out the periodic table, and I believe it only needed one correction after the dream. And this is really common for scientists. Einstein talked about this a lot as well, where they'll work with the rational mind a lot. So that's a big part of it. That's one part of your brain. And then the non kind of like rational mind, the different part of our brain that thinks in a non-linear, non-rational way. And often, when scientists have had a bit of a nap or a rest or a walk or something that enables us to move into that different part of the brain, these insights will come through. And it is the birthplace of creativity, and it is your superpower, not only for new ideas and innovation, but also for your own healing, which is how we use it and apply it in intuitive psychology. Because intuition, like we said, it's your purest form of knowledge. It's completely untainted. Like Jill said, it's like, being kind of that innocence of a newborn. It has all of the wisdom and knowledge that has been with you. All of the answers are from within. And it is the language of the unconscious. So 95% of how we live and operate in our lives is from the unconscious, as in we don't even realize that we're doing it. We can't see our own behaviors. 5% is the conscious mind. And intuition will speak to the unconscious, often in images and symbols and metaphors, which is how we train our coaches. And it will give you the holistic truth without that story and narrative. And that's what enables you to break free, because you all of a sudden see reality in a different way. You see it in something that is absolutely true to you, and you're free from that narrative. And it is the most beautiful form of healing, of knowledge, of wisdom, that if we can take that time to really activate it, we're going to give you some practical tips on how you can activate it and then apply it in our everyday lives. All of a sudden we realize that we don't need a guru, we don't need someone to tell us what to do. We can elicit that information and those answers for ourselves, and then we can use the knowledge that is literally at our fingertips to help us apply it. And the two go hand in hand. Rational and intuition, when they are placed together, are an incredible force. But intuition is everything. It is everything, and it is right below the surface if you can cultivate a sense of presence to really listen to the wisdom that it has to offer.
I think that's so important. As you were chatting, so many light bulbs were going off in my mind, because as you were saying about the metaphors piece, and when people are really busy and they're very active in their mind, often what can happen is it comes in dreams. And I know for me, if I'm super busy, and I do carve out time, but if I've been very activated, a lot of things will come through my dreams, right? And it's the weirdest dreams, like whales all jumping about in the sea or whatever that is. Or sometimes I've had things where I felt like I'm choking underwater, and it's never the thing that you think it is. And when you really look into research dreams, right, I'm like, oh my goodness, what is my unconscious trying to tell me right now? And actually sometimes it's really beautiful, because it's like, you're on the cusp of something really super exciting, just create a bit more space. Because it often shows up in our dreams when we're not creating enough space in the sort of day-to-day life. And that is why really getting out of your mind and creating space for because your intuition won't come when you're always busy. Like people are like, I want to be tapped into my intuition. You're too busy. You're too in your head. It is the space, because ideas, insights, wisdom, the biggest breakthroughs, they never come when you are on burnout, when you are go. When you and I slow down, Sarah, and any time in our business when we've had incredible things that have just come in, lo and behold, it is because we have taken time, we have taken space, and this is the work. And also, I just want to touch on that. If you are someone, and if you're a coach already, and you're listening to this, it is so important, and we've talked about self-mastery in another episode, but it is so important that you really do your own inner work on intuition so that you are not projecting your own stuff onto your clients. And I just wanted to say that because you can start to learn and think, right, okay, how do I weave this into my business? Oh my goodness, this could be so good for my clients. But it is so important that you, number one, tap into this for you and get super good at understanding your own intuition so that you can feel that for yourself, be the embodiment. Well, for obvious reasons, it helps everything in your life, the insights, the downloads, all of the ideas that will flow into your life from being tuned into it, from creating that space. But also when you do that, you're not then projecting your stuff onto others.
Yeah, it's one thing to be intuitive for yourself. It's another thing to work with a client's intuition and to really go into their inner world and to know how to expertly guide it.
Yes.
Which is what we train our coaches in. So let's talk about activating your intuition, because like we said, you know, we can often think of it as something that is spontaneous, something that happens to us. It's passive. Whereas actually there are ways to activate it, evidence-based ways. Now, it's important to say that, you know, the evidence around intuition is still a work in progress. Like, we're still learning all the time because there is a mystery to it. Like, we can't scan your brain, for example, and go, oh yeah, it's in the front lobe and that's where intuition is located. It's an energy, it's a force within us that we don't fully understand. But it has been studied by psychologists like Jung, Francis Vaughan, it appears a lot in like psychosynthesis and a lot of depth psychology. And here's what we know to be true. When we can silence the mind and when we can relax the body, it enables and create space for intuition to rise and come up. And what we train our intuitive psychology coaches to do is we've taken a lot of this evidence, a lot of our own experiences as well, and we have created 2 specific techniques called rapid intuitive trust and deep intuitive trust that enable our coaches to activate a client's intuition so that they can go deeper. And then we add on to these intuitive techniques that enable them to guide a client on an inner journey, really working with these metaphors and symbols that come up. You know, sometimes when a client is in a session, they'll say, just similar to a dream, right? Because when a client is in this state, when you're in this state, you can do this for yourself at home, get yourself into a nice meditative state. It's this state that's between waking and asleep. And this is where intuition really begins to rise up, and you can get these beautiful downloads, ideas, but also you can work with it really intentionally. And psychologists have found, especially Frances Vaughan in her work, that actually when we have a clear intention and we approach intuition intentionally to go to that place to ask for a specific answer, its insights can be really, really rich and deep. And it's so powerful. Like I've had sessions where, you know, a coach has worked with me guiding me through my intuition. And I felt things like, oh, I can see a rope and it's tying my hands kind of together. Now that doesn't need a narrative. I know exactly what that means. Yeah. I could tell you the narrative behind it, but that would take a long time. I know what that means. I've got the insight. Okay. I can then work with that metaphor to really set myself free. And it is beautiful, wise wisdom that can be really, really deeply activated and bring you on the most incredible journey without any need for plant medicine or psychedelics or anything like that.
For sure. And from someone who has, I've tried plant medicine before, and I have to say my intuition. So let's go there. When I did it, yes, and I'm not saying, and I know for so many people they're huge advocates of it.
It does activate your intuition 100%.
Yeah, but what happens is after it, you know, the aftercare. Then how do they? Then there becomes an addiction to plant medicine. I have to outsource. I can't get there on my own, and that's a whole other field. We'll maybe do another episode on that at some point, Sarah. But for now, what we want to do is empower people to know that they can access that with enough space to really trust, because you talked about this, the freedom that it gives you, right, when we're in that space. And it's that saying, the truth will set you free. Your intuition is your truth, and the truth will set you free. I don't know who created that quote. Do you know who created that quote? No, the truth will set.
From a movie? I don't know.
The truth will set you free.
It's a great quote.
It is a great quote, right?
If we find the source, we'll put it in the notes.
Because it does. And if we truly believe that everyone can access this, it can maybe happen much quicker for some people that have a lot to maybe move through. But we can do it. We all have the ability to do it, because it is not separate from you. It is you.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, that is the key. It isn't separate from you. It is you. And I think that is a brilliant point to make, but it is harder to hear when the narratives and the noise and the beliefs are very, very busy in your mind. It is also harder to hear when the mind is busy and we're taking in a lot of information. So, sometimes you'll be able to do this for yourself. So a really kind of like beautiful exercise to do at home is to, close down your eyes, set that intention, in your mind. Okay, what is it that I'd like a bit more clarity on right now? Relax your body, relax your state, like drop in. And just notice what comes up. And maybe the first time you do it, what comes up is just a lot of noise and chatter in your head.
Yeah.
And that's all right. We've got to kind of sift through that to get to the next level and layer, but come back to it again. And obviously for deeper work, like that's where our coaches come in, because they're expertly guided. We both work with a coach.
Yeah.
She's very intuitive. And it's incredible the insights that come up when you're in that space, because what the truth does is it shatters the reality of how you think things should be, and it creates those choices and new levels of awareness of like, actually maybe there's a different way, like maybe these stories and narratives and beliefs that I have really bought into so much that I don't think
built an identity around it.
A full identity. Yeah.
Built a full identity around it. And it's realising that it's okay, right? We're all the same. We're all trying to do life. And actually being a human isn't always that easy, because a lot of challenging things happen in life. But what happens is it's the meaning we make out of it, but we believe it to be so true. And we almost create that identity around it, but it's like our energy starts to be at that level, and so of course then we attract evidence to support that belief. So if the belief is, I can't trust that, or this isn't safe, then do you know what's going to happen? You're so powerful, you're vibrating at that level. It's like, yeah, okay, so here's more evidence. It will show you all of the reasons that you're right. And guess what? You get to be right. I knew that was right. I knew it. And that's where we can sometimes get confused with it was my intuition. Actually, well, what's not your intuition? And actually what is just made up? Because a lot of the time we can be dancing in that space of going, well, but I know that's true, but is it really?
Yeah. And this is a really important point, because intuition doesn't come from the rational mind. It comes from the silent mind.
Yes.
So if it comes from a place of like, I know that to be true, and it's instantly followed by a narrative, that ain't your intuition. If it came from a busy mind, it is not your intuition. Intuition comes from the silent mind. It comes from a place of deep, deep space and deep, deep knowing and deep, deep innate wisdom. That is your intuition. And it's important to be careful, to make that distinction. But again, that is practicing and like using the muscle all of the time. But it does it does really set you free. I know in my own life, we see it in our client case studies. We see it in our students when they go on their own journey. We become so attached to who we are and how we think that the world works and who we believe we need to be in the world. And actually, intuition will only ever show you what consciousness is ready to receive and what it feels safe to handle. And when you reach that point in your life where you're like, actually, is this true? Like, is this really true? intuition will bring you on that beautiful journey that will enable you to shatter the things that really once kept you so deeply, deeply safe, and ultimately enabled you to be the person who you are today. Like in my own life, I remember someone called me a people pleaser once, and I was so raging with them. Like I must have talked about it for about like a solid month, about why did she say I was a people pleaser? I'm not a people pleaser. I'm just nice. I'm a nice girl. And that was my whole narrative. Yeah. And then when I started to really actually go, am I nice? Or am I doing it because I expect something from someone? Am I doing it to control their behaviour? Yeah. And as I noticed resentment was kind of brewing, that I was depleted, that I was self-abandoning, I kind of realised that was the truth, but I wasn't ready to accept that or see that. And as I worked kind of like with my intuition to go inwards, to create and go from that silent bit and ask myself those questions, you know, became really, really apparent. Like, yeah, you know, like this is a coping mechanism for you. This is something that you're doing because you believe that if you do all of this, and people will give you the need that you're not meeting for yourself, that they will love you, that they will praise you, that they will think highly of you, that they will increase your self-esteem. But all the while I was just self-abandoning myself, you know, because it was so easy for me to read other people and give them what they needed, but I couldn't do that for myself. And intuition was the bit that guided me back, you know, although someone had told me that. It doesn't matter who tells you what, that's their narrative that you're internalizing. The truth needs to come from you, because you know yourself better than anybody else. Your wisdom and what's right for you is right for you because you are a unique human being, and intuition is unique to you as your fingerprints are, as your DNA. Like no one in the world like you has ever existed. So why do we internalize other people's maps of the world or viewpoints? Now, advice is useful to a point, but your answers are within you if you have the courage to sit silently and go inwards.
I love that. I feel like people will avoid the silence because it feels uncomfortable.
Totally.
And they're scared of, well, I don't know if I'm going to open Pandora's box, and what does that mean for me? And so people will avoid, and they will numb out, and they will take other people's advice. And do you know what? I do believe, and you said it, like your way, and we say this to everyone, right? Your way is the right way. Ultimately, you come back home.
Yeah.
So even when you go down the path that's like maybe the wrong path, or you enter that relationship, or you do the thing that you knew like you shouldn't have done, but you did it anyway, you're doing your best. You're doing it with the capacity that you potentially have at that time. So I don't want anyone listening to this to be hard on themselves, but how many times are you going to get that nudge and ignore it until you stop and you take a breath and you go, right, okay, let's chat. Intuition, let's sit down. Yeah. Let's have a little chat. What do I need to know right now? And that's a really beautiful question, right? So for anyone that's like, I wonder if I could work with my intuition right now, a really beautiful way is, again, like taking some deep breaths, following the breath, really connecting to your body. If you've got busyness in your mind, just really try and sort of imagine that you're turning this dial down, this noisy sort of energy. You're reaching out, you're turning it down, it's getting quieter, you're dropping into the body. Take a few deep breaths, drop into your heart space. Place your hand on your heart, that hand-body connection, right? Or hand-heart connection, and ask yourself, what do I need to know right now? And then wait. And sometimes it's just one word. Sometimes it's an image. Sometimes it's a symbol. But trust it. Because what happens is we're like, no, what else do I need to know? What else is in there? You know, it's actually, the body holds so much wisdom, but we're so heady that we're disconnected from it. That is your gateway. That is your gateway to freedom, to expansion, to truth, to joy, to play, to laughter. Because if you're not, you're just in your head all the time, which creates illness, physically, emotionally. It tells you a bunch of lies. And actually we're missing a whole part of life and truth and freedom and expansion. Everything that you desire is within you. So if it's within you, practice connecting to your own body. As we said before, it's not separate from you, it is you. So outsourcing, you don't want to do that, right? Work with someone that can help you get there. And we've done this, right? We can see very clearly when we're working with clients what it is, what's going on. So we're skilled in intuiting. And we train our coaches to intuit as well. That is a huge part of it, because it's so important that you're intuiting for your client, if you're a coach or you're someone in the space, that you're not projecting your stuff. There's a clear difference between what's yours and what you're intuiting for the client. But also just being in that space of really recognising and allowing your intuition to step forward to give you what it needs, and realising that it is part of you, but it is your gateway, it's your key, right?
I think that exercise as well is incredibly beautiful, and I really encourage anyone that's listening to try it, because if you're maybe a bit head-led and you're thinking, I want a bit more evidence, that will be your evidence. The evidence will be your experience of it. And it is such an underutilized muscle that we have. We've referenced this before, but 95% of our behaviour is governed by the unconscious, subconscious mind. So we're only ever really working with the 5%. Now, there's a huge, vast storehouse of wisdom and knowledge that is just sitting there, like waiting to come forward. And what Jill has described in that really simple exercise that you can do is a way to access the other 95%. Like, who doesn't want to know what programs are automatically running in the background? Who doesn't want to feel more free and less trapped? The struggle is that we get addicted to being in the struggle, and we think that's the way it has to be because it's safe and familiar and we know it, and we're just always kind of in the head battling with ourselves, beating ourselves up because we've tried to take the action and it doesn't work, and we think that we're broken and there's something wrong with us. The reality is we need the awareness plus the action, and that's why we're the home of active and applied intuition. We activate it, we take the wisdom, and then we apply it. But you need the awareness. Awareness and action is really where the change comes. But so often we just rely solely on the action. We internalize everybody else's recipe for success, their 5-point plans, the 10 things that will lead you to blah, blah, blah. Everyone is tired of that. If that worked, the world would be a completely healed place and we'd be all dancing in our full potential. But we're not. And why are we not? Because we're missing an essential piece of the puzzle, which is us, our truth, our awareness, like our lived experience, our internalized messages, like our conditioned self, which is just begging to be freed because it kept you safe until a point and it served its purpose, and that is beautiful. But we are designed to change and grow, and when that part has served you and it's ready to be accepted and released and let go, your intuition will tell you. You will probably feel it now. You're probably tuned in and maybe you're thinking, I just know something has to change, but I don't know what it is. I just know there's more to me, but I'm not experiencing it. I just know that there's something on the other side of it. That's your intuitive nudge, and you think that's where the knowledge ends, but it's just when it begins.
It's the tip. It's just the little tip of the iceberg. We need to go underneath to get the massive, big piece of the puzzle. And actually, what's really beautiful is you can't get, so that's the thing, you're like, I just know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 5 positive affirmations and I'm going to say them every day, and that's just going to change it all for me. Right, I want to tell you, sometimes that works, right? like it doesn't long term, spoiler alert, but you'll get a little bit of, okay, because you will see people saying, repeat it over and over again, and it starts to become your reality. Right, it starts to become ingrained, right? So it's like, okay, if I keep saying I am powerful, I am strong, I am a money magnet, I manifest an abundance of money into my, of course, if you keep repeating that, you're going to start feeling different. But remember, 95% of you is unconscious. So if you have a unworthiness belief, you might manifest that, but you are going to self-sabotage. And I've seen it. I've done it myself. I've seen it done hundreds of times with people, because that surface level stuff, it is surface level. That's your 5%. That's your surface level. You need to get to the root cause, the root need, the unmet need, work with your unconscious and create sustainable transformational change for yourself. That is, no amount of affirmations is going to do that for you. I don't care what anyone says. I'm just going to lay that out there for you. That, like, these are great. And affirmations, we have a really beautiful technique called affirmative anchors. We only bring that in when we've worked with the shadow. We don't start bringing in affirmative anchors in session 1. Yes, you can do the really juicy, beautiful manifestation stuff. That's all great. But let me tell you, if you go in too early, you're manifesting things that aren't even really aligned to you. They're not even on purpose. They're what you think you need to actually fit in with the world. Okay, I'm going to manifest a bigger house. I'm going to manifest more money. I'm going to manifest like a yacht. Why? Well, because I want to have all these nice things. Why? Like, why do you really want it? And ultimately, when we sit with people, people want to feel seen, heard, understood. They want to be fully seen in their light. They want to be able to shine their light and not to be hiding. You know, they want to express themselves fully. And absolutely, manifestation comes off the back of that, but you effortless. It's not a false manifestation of what you think you want. And when you have healed those parts, those narratives, and you've let go of that burden of weight, anxiety, fear, lies that you've been fed your whole life and carried with you, when you let go of that and then you start to do your affirmations and you really anchor those into your body, oh my goodness, what happens in your life is phenomenal. It should never feel forced. Mm-hmm. And I think people try and force it. They try and talk over, okay, I feel anxiety. I am not anxious. I am strong. Well, really? Because your nervous system's telling us something completely different. How about you actually drop into your body, feel what needs to be felt, move it through on an energetic level and start to bring in more of what is true to you, what is freedom to you, what is love, what is joy, what is play.
Oh, I love that. That is such a difference. Do you want to manifest from a hurt self or from a healed self? Because they are two very different outcomes. Like Jill said, the process is ultimately the same. You will manifest and get what you want, but are you manifesting from a place of hurt or are you manifesting from a healed place? And of course, you know, that healing is ongoing. We're not saying you're ever kind of like fully there, but when you manifest from that place of healed, it comes from a place of authenticity. It comes from a place of love and it comes from a place of truth versus that hurt self. It's like trying to use ultimately the external to fix something internal, which never, ever works. Will you manifest it? Maybe.
Will you keep it?
No.
You won't keep it. And actually, and we've talked about this before, that's why you see a lot of people who are very wealthy, people that are in the public eye, that seem to have everything, an abundance of money, an abundance of success, yet they feel so low because they are so disconnected to what they really feel and what they really want and how they can actually show up as themselves, because they've created this character, this persona, this identity, and to actually, that comes with a heavy burden of actually, I don't know myself. I'm so used to pleasing and performing and being this person that shows up in this way and people then rely on me. That's such a burden to carry. How about if you let go of that and you had all these amazing things and you felt fully like, I can receive that? Because when you don't and you're trying to manifest from a hurt self, you can't receive it.
No,
you can't receive it. You're like, oh God, why is this not good enough? Why can't I actually sit and bask in the joy of, wow, this is amazing, instead of numbing out with other things?
Yeah, as you're talking, all I can think about is me like 7 years ago, where I had, you know, ticked a lot of life's boxes, you know, married, tick, car, really good job, a job that I'd fought really hard to get. I was like the youngest person in the team, the only female. Really kind of outwardly successful, you know, friendship group, all of that. And inside I was miserable and I was angry, like genuinely angry and resentful. Not that I would have showed it because, you know, I was just had a painted smile on my face the whole time. But I was angry because I felt like life had let me down.
Yeah, I did all the things.
I did it. Like I've been good. Like where's my reward? Like why am I not happy? And I thought something was wrong with me. Like I was like, am I broke? Like I felt guilty. I felt shame. I felt all of the emotions. And it was that intuitive nudge. Like you had the intuitive nudge to go to Bali. I had a whopper of intuitive nudge, which was like, sell your house and all your stuff and just leave, which is what I did with a backpack. And that made zero sense to people. I remember going home, friends, family, everyone was like, oh, awkward. Are you doing the right thing? Maybe you could just do this. And it made no sense, right? Why would you give everything up? Like we'd been married for, I think it was about a year, just over a year at that time. Everything was sold. Everything that we worked so hard together to create went. And it made no sense, but I knew with every fibre of my being, and I couldn't tell you how I knew that was the right choice for me. I knew that there was something on the other side. Had I not made that decision, I wouldn't have gone on to have a business that I love, to feel really connected to myself, to have published 2 books that have sold like 90,000 copies, like worldwide, to have travelled the world, to have experienced all of that. It's like a sliding doors moment. I often wonder, like, how would life look for me if I hadn't have listened to that and I hadn't continued to cultivate that relationship with my intuition? Because that nudge that I listened to, that was like the biggest blessing that I've had in my life. Like, I don't know, it's almost, it is magical. Like, I don't know how I knew to do that, but I did, and I followed it, and I've cultivated that relationship like throughout those 7 years, because that was true to me. Now that won't work for everyone, of course it won't, but it was true for me in my life, and it was the biggest transformative moment. And to think that you don't have to wait for that, like that was a sucker punch of a nudge, that was like a big punch in the face, but I ignored all of the other ones.
There'd been ones before then.
There were ones before then, and I vowed to myself afterwards that I would always listen. I would always listen, because my whole life, for a lot of it, I'd internalized other people's opinions, expectations, what they wanted from me, because I didn't feel safe to be me. I needed to shape my life so that the external world accepted me, in the hope that I would maybe accept myself. But it needed to come from me first. So I manifested from a hurt place. I got everything that I wanted, and it didn't work. Versus my life now still probably doesn't make a huge amount of sense to people, right? I still travel, you know, I've made different life choices, but it feels right and true to me, and I feel free to be myself in a way that I never ever thought or imagined was possible.
I think that's beautiful, because it's giving you the evidence. I think once you start doing it, so if you're listening to this, just start with something even a little bit smaller. You know, Sarah mentioned she got her job. I did as well. I was a mum to really young children, and I remember at the time my mum was like, oh, just, you know, get your corporate job back, you know what you're doing there, you know, you can. But I hated it. I hated it. I felt ill. I ignored the nudges for years. My hair was falling out. I mean, I was so ill. But I remember looking at myself thinking, I don't even know who I am. And that's a horrible feeling. And I think lots of people feel like that. And that's why they can tend to numb out with other things. But you do know who you are. You do. And that's it. Like, when you get still and you ask yourself, you ask your heart, you drop in, like I said earlier, and you ask that simple question, what do I need? A lot of the time when we ask people, Sarah, what we hear is peace, space, love. Okay, what does that look like? You know, going a little bit deeper. And just knowing that your body is always there for, like, it always, your intuition always wants to communicate with you. And now we know, like, there's evidence to share with us now that authenticity is measured 4,000 times more powerful than love. So love used to be the highest vibration, and everyone's like, right, ultimately, you know, want to get to love, right? But actually, authenticity, I mean, 4,000 times more powerful than love. Why? Because we can still love our children, our friends, our partners, people in our life, and not be in our authenticity, i.e. still self-abandoning. But you think about it, when you are your freest, most expressed self, when you are in your authenticity, when you are doing what you want to do without fear of failure and judgment and all of those things, and you're the embodiment of your ultimate authenticity, everything in your life is bloody brilliant, right? And even when it's not, it's brilliant, because anything that's not aligned to your truth will fall away. And do you know what? Because you're so in it, I'm not saying you don't care, but you actually don't care. Like, I mean that in the nicest possible way. It's not a two fingers up, I don't care. It's I don't care, and that's okay. I'm actually cool with that. That's the ultimate. I'm not saying that you and I have nailed it, Sarah. Like, you know,
always a work in progress.
It is always a work. And I think that's a lie that we can be sold. Do this program or do this thing and you will always be in your authenticity. You're a human being. You're living in a human world where there's a lot of shit going down, right? And a lot of crappy things can happen in your life that have shaped you. And maybe you're going through really challenging times in your life too. You're human, and being a human isn't always easy, but do you know what? Make it easier for yourself. Like, answer the call. It's not separate from you. Like, do not abandon a part of you, a huge part of you. Like, that's all you need to do. Answer the call within. Work on that, exercise that muscle every day, checking in with yourself. Like, that exercise, do that every day. What do I need? And give it to yourself. And I tell you, I promise you, when you do it, it gets easier. Your life changes. What you manifest will change. How you feel about people. The relationships are richer. Your communication is better. You feel safer. All of it is a byproduct of tapping in to your intuition and connecting back to your authenticity.
Yeah, and if you want to be able to do this, not only for yourself, but for other people, and you want to take your clients to a deeper level of coaching, a level where they can access this inner knowing and this inner wisdom and have these beautiful, rapid aha moments and insight that transform their lives and see you fully booked because they cannot help but tell people by word of mouth, and you want to be an expert in how to fuse intuition and psychology together, then come and look at our training programs. We have 2 that are currently available. Our Advanced Accredited Diploma, which will accredit you to the highest level in the entire industry. We're one of only 11 people in the world to be accredited to that level by the professional global body, the Association for Coaching. And we also have our new certification, the Fundamentals. This is ideal for you if you're new to coaching, if you're curious about becoming a coach, or if you are in the wellness industry, you already have a zone of expertise and specialism, but you want to go beyond your peers. You want to add something into your offering that creates more space for you in your life and more space for your clients as well. Then head on over to our website or come and connect with us over on Instagram to learn more about our work. We'd love to hear from you and be part of this innovative, transformative movement of coaches that are here to reconnect people with their inner innate wisdom and free them from their unconscious programming.
Boom, love it. I will also make sure that all of those links are dropped in our show notes as well, so you can click on those links. Fundamentals is running, so whenever you listen to this, there is an opportunity to start the Fundamentals. Click on the link and you can read more about that. We only run the diploma twice a year, so depending on when you're listening to this, but please click on the link. We cannot wait to meet you. And also, guys, have fun tapping into your intuition. It is your superpower, and it's yours. It's like not something you need to go and find. It's already there. So have fun reconnecting with it.